is majorly done in the make stage of the supply chain? The answer is yes and no. So let me explain. Remember that if I do this, we said plan, source, make, warehouse, distribution. Okay. Now, I also encourage you guys maybe also look at doing some of the other modules, etc., because we explained this in a bit more detail. But MRP is about deciding what product or what material do I need here. So this is where I'll physically use it as an example. But I have to know when do I buy it, because if my lead time for a material is 13 weeks, then I have to plan what I need and when I need it and work backwards so that my procurement people can go and get it. Okay, so MRP actually is part of planning based on what we need for the manufacturing side, but it becomes an input into the procurement function. And remember what I said about CIPOC. You need to know what your inputs are, what your process is, what your outputs are. So for sourcing, what's my process? Let's say it's to purchase and acquire the material. But I need to know what my input is. And my input is basically coming out of the MRP. So I need to know that so that I can source it and the output becomes the input into manufacturing. Okay. Okay. Tamikun, have I answered your question?
Yes, you have. You have. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Anything else from anyone else? Questions or comments? Happy to hear them.
My question basically is not based on the topic, but is based on in general supply chain. Can I go ahead to ask?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Okay. I have good passion for supply chain, and I want to you to advise and tell me skills that I need to start building, because I'm just starting my career in supply chain. I'm a production analyst presently at the Coca-Cola eLearning bottling company. So I want you to advise me on the skills I need to start building to succeed and progress fast in supply chain.
Okay. So to be honest with you, without fully understanding your current skills, it's a bit difficult to give you that advice. But let me give you very generic advice. My first question to you would be, what are your aspirations? In terms of position. And let me give you an example. If you tell me I want to be a supply chain director, it's very different than if you tell me you want to be a procurement director. Okay? Because then your skill set is very different, because procurement is one aspect. So maybe you focus on certain things first. Okay? But what I do want you to remember is that if you look at your supply chain, you got plan, source, make, deliver, reverse logistics, and under deliver you got warehouse and distribution. So supply chain, as you can see, is an extremely broad field. So my suggestion to you, and you can reach out to Truman and myself, is answer this question about where you see yourself in 5 years and 10 years. Okay, and based on that, we'll be able to give you a bit more advice on where you should start. Because remember, you can start anywhere. It depends on where your end goal is. And when you decide what your end goal is, then you can decide what your stepping stones should be over the next 5 or 10 year period. And again, yes, sir, sure.
I've actually made decision. I look at towards becoming production manager in next 5 years, and probably I'll move to being an um, plant manager, then move to becoming operations director, and move to becoming a supply chain director. Those are my aspirations, steps like
Okay.
that.
So then I would suggest if you're talking plant or operations manager first, that's generally in the make function. So go and learn everything about the make function and also short-term planning and capacity planning as an example. Okay. And understand the internal logistics aspects that's going to affect your production plant. After you've done that and you've gained experience in operations, and now you want to go, let's say, to, I think you said the procurement side, or was it supply chain side? Supply chain director.
Supply chain, yeah.
Supply chain director. Then before you become supply chain director, you have to have cross-functional knowledge and experience within the supply chain. And then there, what you do is you go and spend a little bit of time in planning or even the warehouse and distribution function, just to try and get a nice solid base for yourself. Um, the last thing I always tell people this is that if you want to climb the ladder, make sure your ladder is placed on a strong foundation. And that strong foundation is making sure you got experience and skills across the different elements of supply chain. Because if you only stayed in planning or in procurement or in factory and you climbed all the way up to the supply chain director level, you don't have a strong base. You basically went up in a straight line. And sometimes you have to move left and right to build that base and then climb up. And that's what I would recommend that you do. A bit of a longer journey. And in the world these days where sometimes people want instant gratification, some people might not agree with me. But personally, I believe that's the best approach. And out of the people, and based on my experience and the people I've seen, the successful ones are the ones that in the early days of their career spend a lot of time in developing themselves, setting that foundation, and then as they climb up the ladder, they continue doing the same thing. You never stop learning, right? I hope
Absolutely.
I've given you some insights and some help into that.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And if I can just come in the Ken. So thanks for that. That was spot on. I think you've covered pretty much everything. But I've actually realized, because I was actually going to mention that we've got a coaching program for supply chain and industrial engineering. I was going to recommend that you join that coaching program as well. Currently, it's online, which makes it even much better for everyone and anyone, regardless of where you are. So I see that you are already part of the program, Kamekun. So I would really suggest that you stick around. There's going to be a lot of things that we will be talking about in that coaching program. But also very important to mention is that we've got an assessment tool. It's a competency assessment tool, which helps essentially to identify, the gaps that Kenneth was talking about, and it helps you in terms of, planning accordingly. So if you want to be a supply chain director, like you said, so it would sort of give you an overall view in terms of the set of skills that you need so that you are able to plan for that career path. But tied with that, there's courses, so it gives you the skills gap. I see we only have what, just a few minutes before the session ends. So it gives you typical topics that you need to focus on. For instance, maybe it might be operations management, it might be, logistics, and all the other things that Kenneth mentioned. So you then do those courses to make sure that that gap is closed. And once that is done, you'll be able to get a report. So there's a pre-assessment report, which will give you all the set of skills that you need. And it would also recommend the courses. And by the way, even in terms of those courses, it's courses that we've got within the tool. So there's a digital academy that allows you within the Supply Chain Academy. So we are able to give you that type of report, and then you do the courses. Then after those courses have been completed, so you've done, say you had like 5 short courses to do so that you close those skills gap, then it would give you a report post that process to say, okay, now you've successfully closed the gaps. And then again, the coaching session will then come in there to sort of cement that. So if you need any further clarification, or there's things that you want to discuss now one-on-one with the supply chain coach, then you'll be able to also get that type of assistance. But I'm glad that you are already working towards that. You're part of the coaching program, because you'll be able to get a lot of benefits from that program as well. I'm not sure, Kwame, anything that you still want to ask? I see we've got 3 minutes. So, well, actually, it was 3 minutes before. So we've got about 35 seconds. Any last remarks?
So I see Kamikun says, how can I give back to Supply Chain Academy? I'm really grateful for this great opportunity. So Kamikun, my thing is just stay engaged, have a look at what we're doing on LinkedIn and all those different platforms. And yeah, just be a part of it, like it, share it, get the message out there that this is the type of stuff that we're doing. Yeah, that's basically it. And just keep learning.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Truman, we've got 1 minute. You want to wrap it up and take us home?
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kenneth. That was indeed a great session once again. And again, I think, it's only when we start having this type of discussions, the questions, that makes it even more interesting. So I would really encourage, and just to anchor your words as well. So if there's anyone who's interested in the sessions, just keep, following the Supply Chain Academy, Kenneth, myself on LinkedIn, so that you get these regular updates when we are having these sessions. But most importantly, it's all about application. So there's always a saying that, in terms of knowledge, that knowledge is power. So, but we strongly believe that the application thereof, the application of knowledge is power, and knowledge shared is even more powerful. So it's only when we mix like this way we are able to add a value and assist each other, in our respective